heavy, exhausted, silent. Maybe that's the only way you know how to describe your heart right now, because sometimes life hits so hard that even praying starts to feel difficult. You still wake up, still talk to people, still try to act normal, but privately, you are fighting not to fall apart. And maybe what scares you the most is how quiet God feels in all of this. No answers, no direction, no sign that things are changing, just silence. And honestly, that's why the story of Paul the Apostle and Silas feels almost impossible to understand sometimes, because these men were not sitting in comfort. They were beaten publicly, humiliated publicly, dragged through the streets like criminals, then thrown into a prison so dark, so cold, so hopeless, that most people would have mentally broken before morning. And maybe this is the part that disturbs me most. Nobody would have blamed them if they stopped trusting God there. Nobody. Because some situations become so painful that fear starts feeling more logical than faith. But around midnight, something happened that still shocks me every time I think about it. They started singing. Not after God rescued them. Before the chains broke. Before the doors opened. Before the earthquake came. They worshipped while the prison still looked closed. What kind of faith does that? Because let's tell the truth. Most of us can trust God when life is making sense, when prayers are being answered, when doors are opening, when things are moving. But when heaven becomes silent, when the future becomes unclear, when your heart becomes tired, that's when faith gets tested for real. And maybe that's why prison seasons are so dangerous, because they don't just test your patience, they test your picture of God. Suddenly, questions start entering your mind. Did God forget me? Is he even listening? Why does it feel like everyone else is moving forward except me? And if we're being honest, some of you listening right now have asked those exact questions silently, because pain has a way of making God feel distant. But Paul the Apostle and Silas did something most people never learn to do. They refused to let the prison decide who God was. And maybe that's the real reason their worship was powerful. Not because they felt good, not because life was easy, but because somewhere inside the darkness, they still believed God had not abandoned them. And then, without warning, the ground started shaking. Not emotionally, not symbolically, a real earthquake. The prison foundations trembled violently. Chains fell apart. Doors flew open. Can you imagine that moment? The same prison that looked permanent shook under the power of God. And what destroys me about this story is realizing that while they were singing, they had no idea heaven was already moving beneath them. What if some people quit too early because they cannot see what God is preparing underground? What if heaven is moving in ways human eyes cannot yet recognize? Because silence does not mean absence, and delay does not mean abandonment. Sometimes God is doing his deepest work, where nobody can see it yet. And maybe that's why you're still here. After everything that tried to break you, you're still praying, still listening, still searching for hope, even if your faith feels weaker than before. And maybe that weak faith is not failure. Maybe the fact that you're still holding on at all means God is sustaining you more than you realize. So if your heart has been heavy lately, if your mind has been exhausted, if life has pushed you close to the edge, do not let the silence convince you that God has left you, because some earthquakes begin underground long before the prison doors finally open. And maybe the reason God has not abandoned your prison season yet is because he is teaching your heart how to sing there too. Not because the pain is small, but because his presence is bigger. And one day, you may look back at this season you thought would destroy you and realize God was holding you together the entire time. If this blessed you, like, share, and subscribe so you never miss another video. Stay steady, stay faithful, stay anchored in God's word. Peace is yours.